The Hail Varsity Radio Saturday morning show. Strap yourselves in. Here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt.
Y'all don't even know he was a virgin until he's 28, and now, roll tide.
And Mark Kraynak.
Time has come for someone to put his foot down. And that foot is me.
Welcome to it. Weekend editions here. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Mark Kraynak back from assignment, and we'll be joining the stream shortly. Hope you're doing all right. Hope you're off to a good Saturday morning. As always, like and subscribe to Hail Varsity YouTube, and give us a follow on the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed at HVarsity Radio, KFOR Twitter, KFOR News Twitter, and KFOR Facebook. Lot to get into. Busy week. A lot of drama with Nebraska basketball. Are they going to find themselves eventually on the road? ... Question mark. Big chance to get right. And back today against Michigan. Coach Rhule, press conference this week as Matt Rhule closed out the 2024 class. Talked a little bit about Glenn Thomas, the quarterback situation. He is back from assignment. Mark Kraynak.
Good to have you.
How are you, dude? You were out trying to find offensive tackles, wide receivers, and interior defensive line.
Oh, find. You said find. I thought you said fight. I'm like, is that what he was up to last weekend?
That too.
He can do whatever he needs to do in the name of the program.
Right. Exactly. It was weird. A lot of the kids would not listen. You know, I just walk up to them, start talking, and they had their headphones in. They take them out. They weren't interested really in my recruiting pitch. That's why there wasn't a whole big signing day on Wednesday. Why do they even have that anymore? Like, why are we having that? Why do we have the Wednesday signing
day? Wilhite?
Well, okay, but we're gonna have like a whole day for a one or two dudes. Like, why did we have those two? Why do we have those still? Right? Isn't like 90% of kids commit in the first one? Like, what's that?
There's a
second one.
There's a handful of stragglers that ended up. I mean, the number the number one athlete in the country ended up sticking with A&M. In the name of the free market, this second signing day allows more bribery opportunity. NIL opportunity. So away we go.
I guess
you can ski mask and gun the current program you're committed to, and just say, I'm going to push off my commitment, my signing, because I want to do winter sports.
But I think Mark's saying
I'm not enrolling early.
Mark's saying, like, does the second one need to have the same fanfare? Do you deserve to get all that fanfare if you just went ski mask and a handgun on your current school to get some more money out of them? Do you really deserve that whole day of attention?
Well, just think about this, guys. We're talking about they're 2 months apart. Like, not even. You know, like, isn't it like late December? I don't know what the exact date is. What was the first one? Like December
20th.
Okay. December 20th.
22nd, excuse me.
December 22nd. And then you have another one like a month and a half later. Like, what is so special about that month and a half period that we need to have two of them?
You're still making your mind up, brother.
Come on. What is that? Like, I'm considering it, Coach, but I just need Christmas to.
I'm trolling. All right,
I'm really think about this.
I'm going Northwestern punching bag Kisei Tominaga on you right now at the second signing day.
Well, I guess the two thoughts would be you either move to kind of fix this issue. Do you move the first signing day up to like July, so it's the guys that are going into their senior year, you sign there, and those are the guys that can then early enroll, and then the late signing period comes in February. That's one option. The other would be to have a truly late signing day. Have like your December one where the kids can show up for first semester, then have one in like May at the end of the school year for those high school seniors. They can still make it off in the summertime. The timing is weird. I see Mark's point. I mean,
very weird.
We've talked about it before on this show how signing day used to be an event, truly. Used to be a day I'd get my dad to call me out of school growing up so I could watch all the signing day coverage, and see all the kids that Nebraska inevitably wouldn't flip. Like, that was a tradition growing up. And now it doesn't have that same feel. At least the February signing day. It's just it's you're right, it is weird.
Yeah, right. And listen, Drunk Monk just chimes in. We're talking about signing day, not the actual game, but signing day.
Come on, man.
We are. We're talking about signing day. It's that weird period, right? It's baseball's coming up in like a couple weeks. Football's all but done for. I mean, it's done for after tomorrow, and we're all just grappling with that, right? It's hard. Basketball is kind of in the doldrums. Oh, Nebraska lost on the road, and they're going to win at home. Okay, yeah, we know that story by now, right? So it's just that's why you talk signing day.
You know why there's that February signing day? It is literally just to give the radio show host something to talk about, huh? They know this timing.
Nice.
They're like, let's give them some fodder to talk about. Spring football starting soon. Here, talk some recruiting, guys.
Well,
then Walter chimes in
with the question of the hour: is that fella PJ Fleck going to UCLA? Because Chip Kelly wants a pay cut, wants to get his coloring book and crayons out to just call and design plays and not have to play this game of who's waiting till February to sign the 18th to make that the 17th ranked class in the Big Ten.
Dude,
what assistant coach is going to get double his salary and move to USC from my coaching staff?
Dude, seriously, what is going on? So that question, and by the way, he did not say fella,
right?
He said it was a D word and it rhymes with moosh.
Right.
I'll just say that.
So, and the reason I will not use that word on PJ Fleck, although we've all had those moments in our life that resemble the word. PJ's been a guest of the show a handful of times at media days, and he's always been pretty good to us. I think he's a good coach, and I think he's a lot to deal with personality-wise, right? And I think a lot of the peers in the Big Ten believe that as well. But he knows how to recruit, he knows how to develop, he knows how to look at talent. They've
I like the way his teams play too.
They do. They're physical.
Like I think they're physical.
I think him going to UCLA would be brilliant for him. And as much as a identity problem they have in Minnesota right now, because they're not Vikings football, they're not the Timberwolves, they're not the Wild, they're not the Twins. He's had a lot of 9-win seasons. He's had an 11-win season, and he's just buried. Great stadium, just phenomenal development of some no-name 3-stars, right? He's done wonderful. Right. Capris and sunglasses. I love that, Walter.
But he can't. I almost think it would be too much for him.
I think he would get engulfed by Hollywood.
Exactly. He would flame out in Hollywood. Like, it would be classic.
It'd be an each for Hollywood story, right?
No, yeah, seriously.
From riches to rags.
You can tell that guy gets too concerned about the wrong things, and wow, that is not the place you want to be.
Do you think so? I think he's got one of those larger than life type personalities. Big, like kind of as we laid out. He's a lot to deal with. But I also think that 18 to 22-year-olds just generally are a lot to deal with, and I think he kind of resonates with that crowd. I mean, similar to you think back to Bo's years in Nebraska. I think Bo resonated with people aged 16 to 24 much better than he did people 30 to 60, the people that were, actually paying his bills and whatnot. I think it might be a similar story with PJ Fleck in their own way. That big personality, a little bit larger than life. I think he resonates well with 18 to 22-year-olds Fleck, and I'm not sure that it would be a match made in hell, if you will, him going out to Los Angeles. I don't know if the Los Angeles life would get to him. I think that persona that you see from him is, I don't want to say the persona he puts on, but I think he plays it up a little bit because he knows that that's what resonates with 18 to 22-year-olds. There's
a little WWE to him.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I think he could work well. I think he would be fantastic in La La Land because he'd go in.
But he'd get engulfed, like you said.
Well, he could, but he would get that spotlight he wants. He would get the best of both worlds. He'd get the spotlight because it's L.A., right? But the other part of it is he wouldn't have to be the winner in town because it's still a Lakers town. It's still about the Rams. It's still about USC. He'd still be fourth fiddle, but at least he'd have more ability to get respect if he goes and does it at UCLA than the lack of respect I think he gets nationally in Minnesota. Even in his own town, he's got to fight for headlines. He would have problem getting headlines in LA,
right?
Till he doesn't. He could be the hot story, right? Dodger Town. Okay, I mean, so you're way down the pecking order.
Yeah,
but I'm fascinated by the potential. We'll get into this story. On3 put out the Big Ten power rankings going into 2024.
Not On3. The one I sent you yesterday.
Yeah.
Credit where credit's due. Josh Pate.
Thank you.
Josh
My
Pate
fault.
does his power rankings.
Wrong outlet, but Pate does a nice job, and we'll get there. Brandon Vogel with us from Counter Read. We can talk signing day. We can talk Husker hoops. We can talk Fleck and LA.
Oh yeah.
And I can't wait for Vogue's take on this. Subscribe to counterread.com and get Vogue's and Aaron Sorensen's newsletters each week. A couple of them come out. Incredible work. Vogue's, how we doing this morning, man?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
We're good. We're off and running. And would it be a True Hollywood story from riches to rags if PJ Fleck ends up in LA? That's kind of where we're starting. Could he handle La La Land? I think he could thrive there.
By the way, riches to rags, bang. That's our title for the show today. We're 11 minutes in. We already got it. Bang.
Perfect. That becomes too long of a debate.
Some of us had drive-through late-night tacos and got to bed way too late. And I'm on game. How the hell did that happen?
I think Fleck could be pretty good there. In some ways, it's kind of the classic LA story of, talented person from the Midwest goes out west and you either make it or you don't. The question would be, I think the question for anyone with UCLA, but the question for Fleck is why Kelly left, which is reportedly like the NIL money's not there. The consistent support's not there. But part of what makes me think he could work there is he could just go, beast in the underground for a little bit and get that program back to where it needs to be. And then all of a sudden, when you win 10 games, which he's done at every school he's been at as a head coach, you're the toast of the town for a little bit, sort of. I mean, it's a big competitive town, but UCLA it seems like that sort of program where if you're good, we'll check in. If you're not, whatever, do whatever you want over there in Westwood.
Go beast in the underground just became my new favorite term. That is perfect. Yeah. That's exactly what it is, man. Get him in he can coach. There is no question about that. And the style that his teams play is outstanding. But a decade in LA for PJ Fleck, a guy that's clearly he loves him some limelight. And the limelight would be there, but not there. It would just be tantalizing him every day. I think he would fold under the weight of it after a while. Wearing a matching tracksuit with his family in a beachfront home made of white marble and plate glass windows. That's what would be happening, and he would just be really sad. And that's what he needs to do.
He can be beachfront, okay. He can have that lifestyle. He can have that zip code. The problem is his assistants can't at UCLA, and therein is the issue why there's been turnover since Jim Mora Jr. Well, Jim Mora Jr. killed it there. First round picks. Yeah. Out recruited USC post Pete Carroll era. I mean, it was rolling. He wasn't 8 wins, 8-4 wasn't good enough. They've always underachieved. Let's not lie. UCLA should have multiple national championships. They don't. Yeah. They're a basketball school by reputation with the Westwood Wizard, but they got a little big for their britches, and they landed Chip Kelly, and he's been okay, right? I mean, he's beaten USC 3 out of 6 times, survived last year, and he said the hell with it. I kind of stand up and applaud Chip Kelly for going, okay, I'm going to take a pay cut. I'm going to have peace of mind. I hate what college football's become. and I'm going to just go call plays for a guy I used to boss around on Monday afternoon practices. So be it. And if he goes off to the NFL, take me with. Or if you get S-canned for not beating Michigan, I'll just dirty into your job.
I mean, PJ Fleck as the OC at Ohio State or not PJ Fleck, Chip Kelly is playing video games. At UCLA, he was trying to design a video game. And one of those things seems a lot more fun than the other. Like Mark mentioned it. I was curious. I just looked this up. When's the last time any UCLA coach has been there for a decade? You have to go back to Terry Donahue, 1976 to 1995.
Yeah, it's tough there. It is tough. They're this weird. I feel like the overall vibe around the program is this weird combination of like unsatisfied, but also kind of disinterested. And it's just sort of like, what do you even do with that? And then Chip Kelly, like if you don't have NIL money, there's plenty of money in LA. There are plenty of alums from UCLA that you could get money from. But Chip Kelly's not out there beating down the doors, hanging out with donors. That is not that like guy's that. MO.
No.
At all. At all. PJ Fleck would be like, where is the party at, y'all? Like, I'm going, like, I'm probably going to have a shiny, like, shirt on, unbuttoned down to here, maybe a chain. I might go with the chain.
Definitely not socks. No socks.
Yeah, no socks, capris.
He'll get some tats. He'll probably get a neck tat or something tastefully placed.
I think there's a sleeve possibility.
Yeah. Right? Like, he would go get that money.
Oh, he's getting a Jesus piece for sure. 100%.
He'll get that money. And he'd be like, I mean, it'd just be, that's what I'm worried about with
it would turn into an episode of Entourage.
It would look like that. I'm just telling you.
I mean, PJ Fleck is one of the last real devotees of the necktie. Does moving to LA finally get him out of a tie? I mean, if nothing else, the beautiful blue and gold of UCLA is a much more forgiving color combo than what he has to work with at Minnesota.
Yeah.
He's not shy with the maroon and gold by any means. So, I think we're talking. Well, you're at least talking me into this. Let's make it happen. Better than I mean, is there any angst amongst the group here about one Nebraska defensive coordinator?
I think if it was going to be a problem, you would not have gotten Keona Wilhite, because Wilhite was set to go to UCLA. And what kind of turned him back to Nebraska was Nebraska's persistence. They sent everybody in home, and they got him, which is great. And he didn't want to go to UCLA because of the coaching situation. I can't, as transparent and upfront and truthful as Nebraska's been in everything, recruiting, off-season, who needs to work better during winter conditioning, from Rhule. I can't see them getting Wilhite and having Coach White be a lead on this, and then him go take the job right after you land the recruit. I mean, timing wise, it's horrible for the program that loses out to the UCLA job right now. I just don't think he'd do that to Nebraska, and it goes back to something Rhule said about what kind of job are you going into. We've outlined just what type of a treacherous job and situation UCLA is in from an NIL, from a recruiting standpoint. No, by the way, you're now transitioning into the Big Ten. It's going to be it could be really bad for them off the jump for the Bruins. I think they've got some talent for sure, but this would be, unless you're just dying to go back to your alma mater.
Well,
I would be surprised.
I think you can put it simply and just say, who wants the job that their previous head coach just left his beachfront property to take a demotion and a pay cut to move to Columbus, Ohio?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, for all the reasons we stated, like UCLA is kind of a tough job to figure out, which is browsing that coaching list. Like Donahue's the only guy who had like decent success over a long stretch, and he won 65% of his games thereabouts, which is decent, but kind of feels like a ceiling for UCLA. And the other piece of it is, now, like, unless Tony White takes that job like tomorrow, or anybody, you basically have to work. You you got to get in there and put a tourniquet on your roster because it's going to get decimated with the way that the rules are now. And I think, we look at these moves like Kelly to stepping down, quote unquote, the mentor becomes the mentee. Now it's at, one of the 3 flagship college football programs. Jeff Hafley jumping to the NFL. We've seen other coaches jump to the NFL. Like, the quality of life for a coach in college football right now sucks. Like, it does. I mean, ask a couple of them with this calendar and things like this. I was joking with Brady Altman's former colleague that we might this carousel might kill somebody. Like, UCLA is going to steal somebody's coach. They're going to steal somebody's coach. Like, we might get to August and be like, we don't know if this team has a coach going into the season opener. They haven't hired anybody yet.
Does Colorado have a coach? Because guess who subtweeted UCLA? Maybe.
Maybe
I ain't hard to find. I ain't hard to find is what Dion tweeted out right after the UCLA news. Eddie Staples was like, Prime, don't subtweet UCLA.
Speaking of things Brady and I were joking about yesterday, I mean, you don't have any concerns if Dion can handle LA, right?
No, I love that.
I think that's what it takes, though. There, I think you have to have like a really larger than life kind of type personality that everybody would love, and he would bask in it. Yeah, he'd be perfect there. Way better than Boulder.
Yeah,
better than he is in Boulder for sure.
I'd love that. It'd be a fit.
Oh yeah.
The Hollywood power structure would sway. All of a sudden, Snoop and Will Ferrell would be on UCLA's sideline. Now, Snoop and P. Diddy's sons both did attend UCLA for football at one point in time.
Yep.
But it was. I think that'd be awesome. And pony up, Colorado.
Okay, so, hey, for this last kind of signing day that just happened, we were also talking about that. Like, why do you have signing days a month and a half apart? It seems likely that they'll start to shift that somehow because that's just weird. But, Rhule was able to meet with the press and talk about he kind of put a bow on the class, even though there was like one addition. Any major takeaways from where Rhule wanted to take things or how he talked about his new quarterbacks coach?
Not a whole lot. I wrote for a newsletter yesterday about he mentioned the urgency, which could just be like a thing that you say, but it happens to resonate with where I think Nebraska is at right now, having gotten through basically the offseason national roster shuffle. Like, Nebraska came through that pretty well in terms of the players it retained. Yeah. The recruiting class is like right there with, what a typical Nebraska recruiting class is. You held on to Tony White. It all adds up. They're right now in February. A lot can change, but they're one of the most experienced teams in the country based on returning production, and that's usually a very favorable trait to have. So that kind of jumped out to me. The quarterback thing. It was interesting. He talked about having Glenn Thomas and having 2 freshmen in particular who can kind of go. He can start from square one with, which I do think has some value. Also kind of admitted that, he would prefer to have another scholarship quarterback, which I think I've felt all along. I didn't think 3 was, if you have to do it with 3, you'll do it with 3. But so that'd be interesting. It just put another kind of underscore under the QB play this spring. It's going to be the entire story of spring, rightly or wrongly. But it is important because Nebraska is going to have to make a decision after that. Before it's even over, like, Nebraska's spring game is 3 days before, I think, the deadline for the second transfer window. So it's going to be interesting.
Too, if you look at the different programs that are in the Big Ten right now that are in some state of flux, it feels like almost all of them in some way have made major changes at a coordinator position or at head coach, I think you have to look at, God, like Rutgers, Maryland, Nebraska seem to be kind of like the most stable, right? It's a really, do you think maybe that's where Rhule is coming from? Is that, hey, here you got the two teams in the national title game, both replacing their head coaches. They're in transition. You got offensive coordinator changes at Ohio State. You got offensive coordinator change at Iowa. That's actually kind of scary because, wow, they might actually play offense. You never know.
You guys see that? Was the House Judiciary Committee subtweeting Iowa this week?
What?
Yeah, see this? I'm going to pull it up.
That's beautiful. Okay, but
it was really good.
But my point being, do you think maybe that has something to do with why he mentioned urgency? Is that you are now in a Big Ten that is unsettled, like 100% unsettled, and there's a little power vacuum that's kind of there, and you can jump in there if you have your poop in a group.
Go carve out where you're at, right? Go put your flag down.
I think that's part of it too. And, you can think back to Nebraska's transition to the Big Ten, which they kept winning under Bo Pelini the way they had in the Big 12. But, when you would talk to those coaches, they would be like, this was harder than it looked making that transition. And, you look at the Pac-12 programs that are coming in. I mean, the Big Ten power structure right now is Ohio State and Oregon. I think they're clearly the top. Penn State
this year.
Yes. Yeah. This year. Penn State's not far behind.
Nope.
But Michigan and Washington, this was going to be the case even if they kept their coaches, but they're tied for last in the Big Ten in returning production. They have a ton to replace, which means, regression from where they were. They're not going to be 3-9, I don't think. But so you've got Ohio State and Oregon, maybe Penn State's kind of stuck in the top two there. And then beyond that, I think it's pretty wide open in terms of what can happen in the Big Ten this year. And we talk about, in an expanded 12-team playoff, Big Ten's going to get 3, probably going to get 4 a lot of years. All this, there's room there for somebody to make a big jump. And I would agree with you. I think Nebraska is really stable. I think Rutgers is really stable. They return a lot of production. I would put actually Northwestern in that group too, in terms of not having to deal with a lot of this stuff. And in terms of those Pac-12 newcomers, you've got Washington and UCLA. I wouldn't say they're in total disarray, but they've got a lot of moving parts coming in. USC's kind of got to prove a little something. It's Oregon who comes in, and you're just like, yep, they're gonna be a problem.
It's like 5 of the 8. Real quick, it's like 5 of the 18 programs that have had coaches for any length of time right now, right? You got Shiano, Loxley, Franklin, Ferentz, Bielema,
Day.
So it's 6. Yeah. Everybody else
and Fleck. Fleck.
Oh God, sorry. Yeah, you're right. Okay, so there's 7 of them, but still, well over half the conference is basically breaking in a new coach. So
quickly,
really
quick
transitional period.
We gotta do our roll call. It's about a half hour into the show.
Can we quickly show
do that?
The aforementioned tweet about Iowa and Iowa's offense?
Yeah, do that real quick.
I have it pulled up. It's ready to go. It's the tweet, for those that are not watching, says, Joe Biden to his staff, we need to go on the offensive tonight. The offense, and then that is a picture of Spencer Petras leading the Iowa offense.
We do our roll call.
That's from an official account, an official government account.
That can't be a real one.
Yes, it is.
Way.
It's got the blue check mark, Kraynak.
Wow. I wonder who runs the House Judiciary, and where is his staff from? Or her staff?
I was going to say, are there any members from the great state of Iowa that signed off on that on that committee?
Either a Cyclone or a Husker, probably.
Pretty good.
It is Jim Jordan serves as the chairman of the House Judiciary. I don't think he has the.
He's Ohio State ties. Obviously,
something tells me he doesn't have the keys to that account.
No. So our roll call.
Jim Jordan's staff real quick. See if I can find
starting 5. We meant to do this a half hour ago.
Investigator Kraynak's on the case in the meantime.
Eric checks in. Rich says, what's up? Drunk Monk in third. Walter fourth. And you have Joseph checking in at 5. Mr. Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty. Brian Snitley in with us a while back. Black Hills Brennan checks in. And also Eat Beef, Herdizzle, along with some newer names. Mentioned Joseph. So, fellas, thanks for everyone checking in, jumping in, and being with us this morning. Brandon Vogel with us from Counter Read. So I know we talked Big Ten power rankings. Josh Pate, I know he stepped out to take care of the dog for 2 seconds. Elijah, did we do you have that you can post? Speaking of power rankings, this is what Mr. Pate has his Big Ten power rankings projected as. We can have a little fun with this discussion because your top 4 is not surprising. Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, Penn State come in 1 through 4 as they reel off 1 through 18. But guys, Nebraska checks in at 10. Does that seem on point or too low? And I'll get your thought, Vogues, just because you have gone into the not only the opportunity, but you've got the backing because of Nebraska's returning production.
Yeah, that's a big piece for me. I mean, I think the big question with Nebraska is what level of quarterback play are they going to get? You know, some of Rhule's comments this week I took as pretty encouraging in terms of filling some of the skill position needs that they had. We'll see, but like just based on the returning production alone, Nebraska's third nationally, tops in the Big Ten. Teams that are in that position, basically every team that was in that position last year, or 8 of the 10, I think, improved by at least 2 wins. Doesn't guarantee Nebraska will. I'm just saying, like, that's how I treat it. I like, if this was Indiana we're talking about, I'd be saying the same thing. So that experience piece of it matters. Are they going to get the level of quarterback play that they need? I kind of look at that right now, and there's a long way to go before August, but like statistically speaking, could it be worse than last year? And I don't mean that as a detriment to any of the guys that played. They all had their moments, but when you look at it as a whole, the interceptions, the turnovers, the completion percentage, like it's hard to go down from where Nebraska was as a team. So we'll see. I mean, and then you add the piece that Mark was talking about, like just all of the newness and upheaval in the Big Ten really makes it wide open. So among those power rankings there, I think you could argue, and in the national title odds, which, you know, we're not talking Nebraska for the national title at this point, but that basically tells you where Vegas has those teams power ranked right now. I've seen Nebraska as high as 6th, and I could argue they go. I mean, I could put them ahead of Iowa. I could put them ahead of Wisconsin. I would definitely put them ahead of Maryland. Washington is a big question mark. So yeah, I think I would have them higher than 10. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I don't know what – I like the top 4. I mean, I think the top 4 is spot on. I think there's 3 of the 4 real playoff teams. I don't know what the reload ability is like for Michigan to be at that level, okay? But I know what's there at Ohio State. I know Oregon's got a quarterback question, but they sure as hell did well in the portal at quarterback. Penn State, they get a second year now starting with their 5-star Aller. They lose a lot to the NFL on the lines of scrimmage because that's where they were great. They were great on the offensive and defensive line as they built up to that on the O-line, Penn State did. SC's, you know, it's your toy store. They're exciting, but they're going to have to reload. Same with Washington. Iowa, do they find an offense to get matched defensively? They're going to lose some dudes defensively. You know, what kind of growth does Wisconsin make? Little Talia is gone. Then there's Nebraska. mean, I think Nebraska and Michigan State are two programs I circle that could have really nice step-up years in the Big Ten. I like what Rhule's doing, and I like Jonathan Smith a lot. I think he's a really good coach, and I think he fits Michigan State pretty well with what they need to get mindset-wise back to being.
You see who they got picked 17th, though? It's Northwestern.
Uh-huh.
And you're just like...
They're fine with it. They're like, whatever. We'll just go 8-5 and ruin your season.
At this stage, can we just go ahead and give them a +5 on whatever their conventional wisdom ranking says they're going to be? They're going to exceed that significantly. We know that. And then also Rutgers being so low with Schiano now, I think it'll be year 3 for him. I think he's going to get that program going.
And for those listening,
they're establishing an identity.
Rutgers comes in at 15 for those that are listening and can't see. Rutgers at 15, Northwestern's at 17 as you look down near the bottom. Indiana 18, Illinois 16. Yeah. So those are your quote unquote bottom feeders. But there's a couple. Like Washington at 6. I know they just played in the college football playoff, but that's a program that has lost almost all its returning production and has new coaching staff coming in, so 6 seems a little bit high to me. 5 with USC, I guess. They have things rolling under Lincoln Riley, but that seems a little bit high to me. But then I also have to sit back and go, well, who else do I put there? I don't really know. I'm with Schmidt. Top 4 is that's nails. They got that 100% right. Everything else? You don't agree with the top 4, Mark.
When I look at it, and I know everybody's like, hey, Oregon it's Oregon and Ohio State. I just sort of think we might be overlooking. It's not that Oregon isn't really good, and I know they're not a classic Pac-12 team. Brandon, which you pointed out a couple weeks ago, is just like they're physical, but I don't know that they're physical and deep. And when you just look at all of these Big Ten teams, all on one page now, and you try to look for that like easy out. Sort of like that equivalent of 1980s Kansas State, they don't exist. There is not an automatic W on that damn screen. It's just, and so I don't know how well they're built for that.
Yeah,
compared to playing Arizona State, Oregon State, Cal, Stanford, right? It's just those quality programs don't really exist in the base. So how is Oregon going to do with that?
I guess,
with going to Camp Randall in November, for instance.
I guess before seeing them against any Big Ten foes, it does feel a little wrong to have 3 newcomers in your top 6 in the Big Ten power rankings.
Or your current league is that shitty.
Oh, you just said that. I love that.
We're not on the air. We're fine.
I know. I appreciate it.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's it.
You gave me a heart attack for a second, then I had to think. It's like, oh yeah, we're good. We're good.
Well, I mean, that's. Hey, I mean, how do you feel if you're the old guard of the Big Ten? I mean, they hated Penn State coming in. They probably didn't like Nebraska. They sure as hell didn't like Scott Frost's declaration of what the Big Ten was going to have to do to them, adjust.
Which Oregon has already kind of said too. So
sure, they're coming in real hot. So and they've got 2 options at quarterback. They got the stud that drove Chip Kelly nuts, the 5-star that can either get groomed or go win a job, and then they got the Oklahoma quarterback they ripped away. So they're fine. I mean, they've been okay with these one year guys, and Rhule touched on that where he doesn't want to go and be dependent on always chasing that 1 year gap filler that can come in and play at a super high level. He wants to groom and develop. To you guys' point about the death march, the attrition of a Big Ten schedule. Let's look at Nebraska basketball for just an instance. How grueling the schedule has been for basketball. That has been something that's taken away from the team. That's going to be tenfold in football. You're not playing 4 games in 12 days, but dude, your body blows you're taking in the Big Ten. And folks, you're going to have to be versatile as hell on defense because you're going to see about every different type of offense in this league.
Yeah, I mean, seeing the graphic we had up, which was just all 18 teams in one person's order, it kind of struck me for the first time, like, what we have is it's a Kentucky Derby field. And if you're a fan of horse racing, like they cap that race at 20, but it's notorious for being chaos. Like, the one Kentucky I went to, Barbaro, at 50-1, won the whole thing. And that's not going to happen. I don't think Northwestern is going to win the Big Ten this year. But to Mark's point, like you don't pencil anything in this one. I mean, Nebraska, we can look at their schedule, which is another piece of why I'd probably have them higher in the power rankings. Like, looks pretty favorable. You don't have to leave Lincoln for the first 4 weeks. You don't face a team that ranked inside the final top 50 of SP Plus until you get to Ohio State, which I think is October 26th, somewhere around there, late October.
And there's no expectations you win that game.
No,
there just aren't.
Now, everything after that is top 50 teams from a year ago. But if things go well for Nebraska, at that point, you hopefully put yourself in a pretty good position. But it's just there's not going to be weeks off the way we were used to. If you were a Nebraska follower or fan of the Osborne era, I was 23 years old before Nebraska lost to Oklahoma State in my lifetime. 2002. That was the first time. I was born in 1979.
Wow.
And I mean,
yeah, Brandon, sorry to cut you off there. But that just got me thinking when you mentioned Oklahoma State and you look at the quality of the Big Ten. And if you pulled up a graphic of the SEC, you'd say the same thing, right? It's just really deep leagues that even the bottom feeders have some notoriety and some fan bases and some talent, and like they could be dangerous as well. When you look at how the Big 12 and the ACC have responded, and kudos to them that they've been able to sort of stay alive, right? I think the Big 12's turned themselves around fairly well, all things considered. But how long do you think it is before, put it this way, is it inevitable that those two conferences get picked apart also? And if so, by when?
I think it is inevitable, which doesn't make me happy as a college football fan. I look at the current Big 12, and I think it's going to be our most fun, obviously subjective determination there, but our most fun college football conference. It's going to be the conference that still feels the most like college football. And it's weird, it's an amalgamation of parts at this point, but you've got teams all over the place. And what you don't have, and this is the key, is you don't have like the big traditional powers, which is, Chip Kelly's move. So, okay, it's
like a bracket buster league.
It is we've known for a while that power is consolidating into the Big Ten and the SEC. What a move like Chip Kelly's tells me is the power is even consolidating higher to the powerful teams in those Power 2 conferences. Because if Chip Kelly's going to leave UCLA to be the OC at an Ohio State, okay, does that mean the OC job at Penn State is better than the Maryland head coaching job? I mean, you can go through this and it gets really tricky. And we've seen this, G5 coaches leaving head coaching jobs to be what used to be P5 coordinators. And that makes some sense. But seeing it within the Big Ten or seeing it within, across the SEC to the Big Ten or vice versa, that's something different. And I think that's an even further consolidation of power than I was expecting as we enter our 12-team Power 2 future.
Mm-hmm. That's where we're going. Vogues, where are you going with Counterread? Counterread.com. Tell folks how they get locked in.
Yeah, you can check us out at counterread.com. It's a twice-weekly Substack from myself and Aaron Sorensen. We also do a couple of free pieces each week, but coming up next week, I've got some stuff I'm working on with Nebraska and its home field advantage. That's interesting. And also, I think next week we're going to get our first set of power rankings from various spots. So by this time next week, I think I'll get my spreadsheet out and we'll be able to talk prospective win totals based on some of those.
Oh, all right.
Nice.
All right. early range that you're landing on? You had
For Nebraska,
12-0.
I'm guessing 7.
Get to the sports book.
7. I mean, you look at their first, 6-7 games. Like, they might be a slight underdog to Rutgers. We'll see. There'll be a lot of toss-up games in there, and that's how that works. Like, you just convert point spreads to documented win probabilities, add them up. So, I'm guessing 7 for Nebraska.
About 7 win. Okay.
Speaking of getting down to the sports book, 49ers, Chiefs, where should I go with my money this weekend?
I mean,
what is the spread on that?
To the bank of Schmidt, if you're handing it out.
What is the spread on that? Is
1.5.
1.5?
49ers favored by 1.5.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems like the smart money is on the 49ers, which doesn't make a ton of sense. Like, it's just, for me, it would be too hard to not take Mahomes and points. It's a little bit like getting points with Nick Saban at Alabama. That's just it's kind of a blind. Like, yeah, I'll take my chances with that.
They get that bump, Mahomes bump. Yep.
Vogues, appreciate you much. Thanks for getting up with us, bud.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
There he is,
Thanks,
Brandon Vogel. We say hi to the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp. He and I are both going to stop by a 7-Eleven later and scare people. Sharpie, what's up, man? How we doing? Wood chipper Gary.
Good. I'm in. For Pete's sake, Kraynak, are you supporting the Pirates again?
Nah, no. See, it's not the Pirates. We've had this discussion, I think, before. This is my boys' baseball team. This is navy blue. It's hard to tell. The fidelity of the camera is probably not letting that come through.
It's probably the Pelicans.
I did love Jose Lind and Andy Van Slyke as a youth. I appreciated what they brought.
How about Spanky LaValliere? Spanky LaValliere behind home plate, all-time nickname.
I'd kind of like to bring the term spank back. You know how people used to call somebody a spank. Remember that?
No, I don't. I think spank has been canceled, and now it's, instead of being said, it's worn.
Is that it's okay? All right.
I just noticed your tree behind you. Is that thing real or just decorative? Not you, Sharpie, Kraynak. What's that behind?
That's been there for a minute. It's one of those like yucca plant kind of things.
Say, is it a ficus?
No, it's a real one. It's sitting on a tabletop. You know those things that have like 2 branches coming out and then it kind of spiders out, looks sort of tropical, right? I got it tropical up here in February and almost.
Has your name been Mark's AI generated double all show long?
That's the question, isn't it, Elijah? That's the question.
I'm just noticing it now.
Is this even happening? Are we even doing this, or are we living in a parallel universe? Like, we don't know.
We're not going that deep on a Saturday morning.
I'm just saying it's possible. No, I was able to edit my name. I didn't know I was able to do that.
Yeah.
And when Gary came on as wood chipper Gary, it reminded me like, oh crap, I forgot to do a fake name. And so
pretty good.
That's a good one.
My AI generated double.
Yes, I'm in Fargo, so that's why we're going with the chipper.
Oh,
I love it.
Love that movie.
One of the classic scenes.
Hey, the movie. So the movie wasn't filmed here in Fargo. It was like filmed in Bemidji. But there's a lot of short, funny-looking people that are walking around Fargo. But the TV series is actually awesome.
The first year one was great with Billy Bob Thornton. That was awesome.
Tell me what the short, funny-looking people had to do with the show being awesome. Is something going over my head here?
No. So
you
one
want
of
to get
the
a jab in?
No. So one of the great lines from Fargo is. There's just he was a short-looking person. He was kind of funny-looking.
Okay.
I just Googled short, funny-looking people Fargo, and indeed that popped up.
And cue Kraynak's Joe Pesci, funny how, right?
Well, I amuse you?
Yeah.
I'll make you laugh. Come on.
Hey, it's
Fargo to Goodfellas.
It's I was in Grand Forks on Thursday, and it was 47 degrees. And by the afternoon, it was snowing. So it snowed here. They hadn't had snow. Like they'd had a great winter. So no need for the wood chipper.
By the way,
I got that one.
So the House Judiciary GOP had this tweet where they just destroyed Iowa, right? And we were here it is. Joe Biden to his staff, we need to go on offense tonight at the office. It's great. It's seriously great. Perfect. So I looked it up.
Catching strays.
So we're just sitting there saying, okay, there has to be somebody on Jim, because Jim Jordan runs that thing. There has to be somebody on his staff that is like from Iowa State or Nebraska or Minnesota, Wisconsin, like has to be, right? Looked it up. Russell Dye. He is the communications director, and he is in charge of communications for the House Judiciary. He's a Georgia guy. And then he went to law school in Arkansas, and then his deputy is also a Georgia guy. So it has nothing to do with like rivalry with Iowa State, just college football in general. It's a couple Georgia Bulldog guys that are just like clowning Iowa. That's perfect.
Private
That's
eye,
just
Mark
good to me.
Kraynak. Hire him for your next cheating spouse.
Do it now. Mike Hammer, he is. Sharpie, there's a lot this week with Rhule, with signing day 2.0, with Husker
Dumb
hoops.
signing day, by the way, Gary. Dumb signing day. Why do they have
with
two
the
signing days a month and a half apart?
UCLA opening. But I want to go and get your take on something that annoyed many and some overreacted to, and this is the Kirk Herbstreit, Dom, Dylan, Raiola drama. And there's no drama with the Raiolas. There's no drama with Herbstreit, but Feinbaum and company and a lot of national football guys lost their mind about how ethical or unethical, what's going on here in the world of college football. Kirk Herbstreit can't be steering kids. And it's the most idiotic thing there is, because Dom and company were going to do what's best for them, no matter what happened phone call wise or not. And there's been a relationship with Herbstreit and Raiola for a long time, going back to the Nebraska days. So what did you make of it? I found it fascinating, not only Dom's national interview with Rivals, but then the fact Herbstreit had to go on, like, defend himself and say, look, dude, I'm not going to like lie about Matt Rhule if I'm asked about him. Here's what I think of the guy.
Yeah, I think it shows you how much power Kirk Herbstreit has. I mean, ESPN kind of runs college football, and Herbstreit is a voice. So anything that he's attached to, people are going to be like, whoa, 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 especially on the heels of the Florida State people are not happy. I thought it was one of the weirder stories of the week, how it needed some clarification, because does anybody believe that the Raiolas would go through this process and they wouldn't let Dylan make his own decision? I mean, that's the kid that's got to live in a certain place for 3 to 4 years, and he's the one that is in the spotlight. Everybody knows dad, but the kid is in the spotlight. He made his decision on his own. But again, Herbstreit has a lot of power, and whenever his name is attached to something, right now he's very polarizing. I mean, that's either the beauty or the badness of college football. But you're right. It was a weird story that dropped while everything was going on in signing day. And I'm with you, Mark. I think it's sad that signing day, the first Wednesday in February, has gone by the wayside. But they've got to change the calendar. They've got to do something, because it is. But because the calendar never ends. You know, Nebraska. The smart thing for Nebraska, and they have the ability to do this, is you're never closed for business. I mean, you're always looking to upgrade your roster, man. If somebody drops into your lap because Chip Kelly is an embarrassment to UCLA, an embarrassment to himself, and is doing what he did to those kids that are still at UCLA, and you happen to get a 4-star rush in, hey, good for you. But you know what? Look at overnight, Alabama loses their offensive coordinator. You know, UCLA is looking for a football coach. It's February 10th. We've gone past the portal. We've gone past a couple of signing days. Now you got a 30-day window that opens up with some pretty good players there, but they really can't go anywhere because no schools are open for them to transfer. I mean, it's just college football right now is it's a great sport. On the field, it's fabulous. Off the field, it's rudderless, and it is careening into a wall before somebody takes hold, whether it be the Big Ten, SEC. But it was another week that showed we love college football, but man, we need some direction in a big way, from NIL to portal to calendar to just saying stuff that makes sense.
Yeah. Timetable wise, Gary, we talked about it with Brandon a little bit. It seems inevitable, right, that the ACC and Big 12 will get picked apart, will get absorbed, you know, sort of like the best ofs will get absorbed by the Big Ten and the SEC. But how long are we talking here? Like, does that happen like this year? Because I'm thinking about how Washington and Oregon kind of came out of nowhere right? Like it seemed to transpire pretty quickly, and then it's just boom, overnight it happens. Does that happen this year? Does it happen next year? Is there some sort of television contract that would prevent something from happening real soon?
I think the big window is 26 because that's when the playoff has the new TV contract. And so all of a sudden there is a huge influx of money. So what does that mean with the moving parts? I mean, I think we're probably going towards an AFC versus NFC.
Yep.
You know, where the AFC is the dominant, hey, we want to play big boy football. The other side is, yeah, we want to play football, but we can't compete on the level of the $200 million club like Michigan, Ohio State, Nebraska, and some of the others. I don't know. We love this sport, but God, there are a lot of times we can't get out of our own way. And it looks nothing like, 10, 15 years ago. We all got to adapt to change, but sometimes change isn't the best thing with this great sport. And I think we're going to find that out sooner than later if we haven't already. But, man, money talks. And when money talks, people walk towards that money. Just ask Florida State how they're feeling right now, North Carolina, other teams in the ACC that are looking and going, you know what, look what we provide in this conference that North Carolina State or Virginia Tech, they don't provide. Why aren't we getting more money? It's just we put ourselves in this position, and I don't know what the end game is because I don't know who takes the reins and who is in charge. It may be the most powerful man in sports, and that's Greg Sankey. Who knows right now?
Gary Sharp with this weekend edition. It's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Going to go to the Nebraska front here, Sharpie. Go ahead.
Can I mention one thing? So you guys were talking with Brandon about some of the win totals. So a buddy of mine is in Vegas, and Vegas, the window in Vegas to enjoy yourself is about 48 to 72 hours if you don't live there. And if you live there, you really don't go to the Strip unless somebody visits or you're going to a show. You stay way away from that. But 48 to 72 hours is enough for me in Vegas, and then I'm just done. So my friend is there, and he is working for a media company. He's there for 192 hours. So I talked to him last night, and he is spent. And he's going to the Super Bowl because that's part of his duties, but he is absolutely spent. He was in, I want to say it's Circa, and the win totals for college football are up. He saw Nebraska at 7.5.
Whoa.
Does that seem kind of high?
No, that seems about right to me.
No,
I know the schedule factors in.
I think that's there.
7.5?
Okay, here's why we maybe don't. Another thing we talked about with Brandon is just the state of the Big Ten right now is so in flux. We just went through it, and it's like I think 7 of the 18 teams have coaches for 3 or more years, right? Head coaches. Everybody else basically breaking in a new coach either first or second year. Staff upheaval has been rampant across the Big Ten. You got four new teams entering the mix. It just feels like there's so much out there for the taking right now. I mean, your national champion coaching staff is falling apart, right? Yep. It is there for the taking. Ohio State's kind of separated themselves. I would say Penn State even has in terms of occupying the top quarter of the conference at least. They're almost a shoe-in for that. Oregon probably, but can they survive the attrition in the Big Ten? We know their top-line talent's good enough. We know they're physical enough, but can they deal with body blows all year and then winning in Camp Randall in November? We don't know that yet. So it's just wide open, Gary. It's just like, why not Nebraska? They're actually one of the more stable programs. They've probably had the least amount of disruption to their roster and coaching staff compared to any other team in the conference.
Yeah, I would agree from that standpoint. And you brought up one quick thing I want to touch on, because you're looking at UCLA, which now in some upheaval. Ohio State has had some changes. Iowa's had some changes. I think one of the biggest wins of the offseason for Nebraska, and quietly they've had a good Nebraska offseason in terms of fixing holes on their roster, is it's either got to be your 1 or 2 accomplishment is that Nebraska kept their entire staff together. They added someone, but they had a spot open essentially with their tight end position. So they were able to maneuver stuff, but able to keep stability on their coaching staff. But probably even more so, and I still think this will be the case with UCLA now open, is you were able to retain Tony White for another year. And so with Tony White has the guys that he brought from Syracuse and the guys that he has worked with this year, they all stay together. And Nebraska is one of the older teams of the Big Ten. I could vibe with you, Mark.
Yeah. Hey, spell this. Go ahead.
Really fast. I want to ask, how much of a shock to the system would it be to you, Gary, if Tony were to leave to UCLA? What's your worry level on that? It sounds like it's low.
Yeah, I think he would not be, even though his connection to UCLA, I think would UCLA hire a guy that hasn't been a head coach at a Power 5 that's going to need a ton of energy? The thing with Chip Kelly is their NIL is not in a good spot. They play way off campus. There isn't a super amount of attention to their program. And really the only reason they're making the move to the Big Ten is because the team across town made the move. So UCLA football is not what it used to be. And maybe we've always built it up as this great program. And now we look in the numbers and we go, they're not as good as we've thought over a long period of time. I don't think it would be an ideal situation for Tony White to have success early. I also don't think it would be good for UCLA to hire a first-year guy. There are other guys that are in the pecking order that are ahead of him. But again, in Vegas, Tony White is plus 650 to be the next head coach. Now, it would be smart of an athletic director to reach out, and it would be Matt Rhule, even the timing would be off to say, hey, go do it. I just don't think UCLA, that wouldn't be a smart play for them. Are you looking to hire a guy that gets you through the next couple of years, or are you going to try and swing and hire a guy that gets you for the next 10 years? I don't know what they're going to do there, but I don't think UCLA is an ideal situation for Tony White to have his first head coaching job, Power 5 or not.
And let it be known, maybe it's a generational gap. For me, somebody born in 99, I never have thought of UCLA as being a football power, being a football school. Never once in my life. Yeah,
but in Elijah, that's a great point, because Schmidt, Mark, and myself, we remember Nebraska and UCLA playing some great games in the 80s and the 90s. And, the UCLA with Terry Donahue on the sidelines, I mean, they had some great talent, whether it be Troy Aikman all the way, through Gaston Green. I'm just, but you're right. They haven't had
J.J. Stokes.
Yeah, UCLA has never been at the forefront of the discussion around college football. And even when Chip Kelly went there, nobody was like, oh, watch out for UCLA. So it's another, to add to Mark's point in the previous conversation, it's a weird UCLA coming into the Big Ten where, man, are they the fourth best team coming from the West and might not get into that middle tier of the Big Ten for a while if they don't make the right hire?
They are in danger zone. They are absolutely in danger zone. They were forgotten despite a nice finish last year. They just don't ever deliver based on what they should talent-wise.
So Chip Kelly has the great line about UCLA is that NIL beats warm weather, but I don't think Chip was super aggressive in reaching out to boosters, reaching out to NIL, selling UCLA. I think
got to do.
Chip is ideal as an offensive coordinator, and I think it's a home run hire for Ohio State. I think it's an embarrassment for where UCLA football is that this happened to them on the 9th of February. And I think it's a bad look for Chip Kelly, what he did to those players. But it's probably, as a UCLA fan, you're like, hey, this is best for both parties. We wanted him out. He wanted to leave. Finally, we get our wish. But what are you going to get in return? Because you're going into a big boy league where you're not going to have many off weeks anymore compared to the Pac-12, where you didn't have a lot of off weeks, but you get what I'm saying. You factor in travel, new opponents that you're facing for the first time, new recruiting landscape. I mean, it's a tough look for UCLA. I don't know if there's a home run guy out there, maybe David Shaw, but other than that, that would join you in the middle of February.
Well, what about Fleck? I know Fleck's well respected by some and kind of annoying to others, but I mean, he was one of the names along with Shaw that Feldman put out there.
So
I think Coach Prime would be money out at UCLA. I mean, just ask him. As he got loose on Twitter.
For what it's worth, Fleck is making $6 million a year. I think UCLA could probably get up to 8 million Fleck coins a year, probably in an offer.
So here's my thing with Fleck. Is this Fleck's name being attached because he has national respect, or is it Fleck's agent make sure that his client stays at the top of the list of these jobs that open up with national writers? I will tell you this. The Minnesota job's better than the UCLA job. They care more about football at Minnesota than they do at UCLA. He's got an athletic director that hired him that had just got an extension. Him and his wife just built this huge house. He does, as you mentioned, make $6 million. He may have hit his ceiling at Minnesota, but I think Minnesota is better for him than going to UCLA.
That's fair. I think from an ego standpoint, though, he would love trying to build up UCLA and being in La La Land. And I think he wants to be that showman.
Yeah, the thing I've always said about PJ, and I think PJ's a good football coach. He's in his problem right now is trying to keep his staff together because it seems like they have a lot of movement on their staff. I think PJ's a good football coach. I think he's a good builder. I think they are in an interesting spot for the second straight year on the expectations are now being moved down a peg, and the conference gets tougher, and they've got to deal with the NIL world in a city where they're not at the forefront of the discussion. The pro sports teams are. Is when you hire PJ Fleck, remember, you turn your program over to him. Like you let him rebrand your entire program. That's why when people say, oh, you know what, man, he'd be perfect at Notre Dame. No. Would he? Would Notre Dame, the ghosts of Notre Dame football, allow PJ Fleck to row the boat and do everything that he does at a place like Minnesota because he came in on the ground floor? I don't think so. I think Minnesota's a perfect spot for PJ to get to where he wants to go. And again, he's tied himself deep into that community now. And I think it's probably an agent going, you know what, let's just make sure that people in Minnesota respect my client.
Good call. Sharpie, when we talk Nebraska football, we'll have a chance to hear from Glenn Thomas coming up on Monday, and 3 different quarterbacks that Glenn's coach, that Rhule laid out there, 3 different styles. And let's get your overall kind of reaction to Wednesday and Rhule's thoughts on the direction. He wasn't bashful with some of his call-outs, but he also kind of put a gauntlet down of, all right, you worked hard, good work, but last year was 5-7. You got to work harder this year.
I agree. Do you guys get the sense that, Rhule has a strong relationship with Satterfield? I hope that Satterfield is not Matt Rhule's Kevin Cosgrove, where you've worked with a guy, you're loyal, but that guy isn't up to the standards that the conference needs or your team needs. But I also think, and I've heard Rhule kind of intimate this, is Satterfield will get a pass for the offense last year because of the quarterbacks. And not all the quarterbacks were created equal. And Nebraska this year, and they'll do the same thing with the strengths of Dylan Raiola, is they design their offense around what the quarterback can do best. I don't think Satterfield had a clue on what the quarterbacks could do best. And he wanted to win football games, and I wondered who he was calling plays for, the quarterback or the fans or for himself. And it was all over the place. Then I got the sense the other day when Matt Rhule was talking about and vehemently said Satterfield's still calling the plays, that he's given Satterfield a pass, but not very long of a pass.
Here's what I believe. I believe with Glenn Thomas coming in, and you look at the history there, and there was instances in the past where Satterfield moved on, right? He moved on to Tennessee Tech, and that is when Glenn Thomas stepped in and became OC and quarterbacks coach. Okay, so there has been an instance in the past where you haven't had Satterfield on one of your staffs, and you were okay. You won ball games. Your build kept going in the up arrow direction. So I don't think Matt Rhule, if push comes to shove and the offense is a mess and you're not maximizing your talent, I think he would make that hard decision. And if Sat ends up being just a tight ends coach, or there's another opportunity, if it doesn't go well next year, I think he has the program's best interest in mind, no matter how many years you go back to Western Carolina. Yep. But I get that's a fair question, because you know how loyal the coaching fraternity is. And I don't think, if it ain't going well and it's too big a job, you're not getting it done, I think you You do what's in the best interest of the program, no matter how much it hurts. I'm not worried about Rhule doing that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think Glenn Thomas comes in a great situation. So Glenn Thomas's forte is he does really well with young quarterbacks, and then he takes them through the process of developing to be a good technical quarterback that grows under him. That's why the Steelers were really attracted to him, because of their young quarterbacks, especially Kenny Pickett. So I think Thomas walks in a great situation. He basically takes over 3 guys that are starting from scratch, essentially, in the college game. They've all got their special skill set that they enter Nebraska with. Harburg has more, game experience at the Division I level, but he gets to kind of mold them and see what they can do, and then mold that offense. So I think we all want to see like the development of, Dylan Raiola. How do you shore up some of the little things that maybe you get away with in high school because you you got a big boy arm and the talent isn't on the same level. But also, maybe the biggest thing to watch for Glenn Thomas and how we judge Glenn Thomas, don't you guys think that it might be the development of Danny Kaelin more than anything?
It's a big picture, right?
Yeah, it's not like Danny Kaelin's a bum coming in. He's got a special skill set. No. He just had a senior year where he was running for his life, it seemed like, on every snap. And there's going to be a point that you're going to need a guy like Danny Kaelin, and you can't have him just thrown in there and go, what do we do? So he's a guy that I'm going to watch to go, okay, I see what Glenn Thomas is doing, along with Raiola, and then to shore up Harburg to whatever they need out of his skill set that can benefit him in 24.
Based on Rhule's comments on signing day about the quarterback position, being happy with 3 scholarship guys, do you think developing a guy like Luke Longvall is going to be big this spring as well? Because you don't have that emergency quarterback option. Matt Rhule kind of insinuated it's going to be tough to go into the portal and find somebody who's going to be, I guess, happy to be that fourth string guy, a guy that's prepared to ride the bench. Luke Longvall, big spring for him, and is it going to be a big spring to try to get him ready to potentially be an emergency guy?
Kudos to Elijah. He'll be the only guy that mentions Luke Longvall today, except for his family.
I know.
But that's a good point because, you got 4 quarterbacks, and he's the guy that, probably is more well-known. I don't know. I think Nebraska having 3 scholarship quarterbacks and, is Harburg your emergency guy? But, man, I don't feel comfortable with your first 2 guys off the bench, your true freshmen. It almost seems like the ideal situation for Nebraska in May is for a local guy that has multiple years of eligibility, that has played quarterback on a Division I roster, wants to come back home.
Stillwater.
Well, I don't think that's the case because they love him there.
No, I know.
They love Zach.
It's wishful thinking from a lot of Husker Nation.
It's like a guy like an Easton Stick went on and had great success in this town here in Fargo. But it almost seems like a guy that, wants to get back closer to home, got a couple years of eligibility left, but probably, wants to compete, but knows what you're walking into. That would be an idea.
Are you talking about the kid at Westside, the kid from Westside up in North Dakota State? Or are you thinking of somebody in particular, or just like a general?
Not nobody in particular, but somebody that they would be attracted to Nebraska because it's close to home, whether it be you're in state or you're from Kansas City or Iowa or something like that.
Yeah. Hey, you guys want to play a little fun game real quick? Of course you do.
No, I don't want to guess if you're wearing pants.
It's not that game. It's not that game.
The answer's always no.
Because you were getting up.
No, but let me show you here.
Interesting.
Gary, about that wood chipper.
Hey, quiet down back there.
Interesting little exercise.
Sure it is.
Has nothing to do with that.
That's what you said.
To do with that.
The authority showed up.
This thing is falling apart. All right. Share my screen here because a lot of upheaval in the Big 12, a lot of upheaval in the ACC. And I have conveniently, if you're watching in the stream, pulled up a couple tabs that has both. Has all the different logos and all the different teams that are ripe for the picking at some point here.
I know Schmidt can't see any of this on his tiny little screen.
No, Chris can't.
I need glasses. Here, it is what it is.
Here, bud. I'm going to zoom in a little bit for you. Just a second here. And it's tough. I was trying to find an actual list, and that, that's impossible.
Are you talking poachable entities? Is that where we're going?
Well, I'm just saying. So is the conventional wisdom is that we're going to go to 24 teams, right? in the SEC and the Big Ten. Can we just go ahead with that assumption right now? Right?
Eventually, yeah.
So that's 12 teams essentially left from the Big 12 and the ACC, and it's going to be like a draft. That's kind of how I imagine it's going to happen with this little new joint venture between the SEC and the Big Ten. They'll just get in a draft room and be like, with the first pick, Big Ten selects, right? So if that happens,
I love that idea. Big Ten draft.
Like, honestly, that should happen. But when you look at who's left in the Big 12 and in the ACC, I count 3 ratings generating football teams, right?
I think there's 3 brands that go with the TV market. Give me Miami. I think give me I think Duke and North Carolina.
No, I'm talking football needle movers ratings wise. It's Miami, Clemson, Florida State. That's it. Then there's
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame, and we're not counting.
Don't overlook the power of North Carolina.
I'm talking ratings for football.
Okay,
that
right?
Brand, though,
which drives all this stuff.
Well, yes.
Ratings for football, brand names nationally that draw eyeballs to the TV. Who? I mean,
everyone
put North Carolina up there, right?
Not football, but for basketball is
that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going.
But I think Miami, Carolina, Duke, Notre Dame, and just from a nostalgia standpoint, go get me Colorado.
I need to establish some ground rules here. Okay. On this game that we're playing here, the official rules, if you open the box and you fold open the sheet, we're first starting with football ratings drivers, which is essentially what's driven most of the expansion outside of geography, right? With Rutgers and Maryland, that was a geographical play. Everything else all across the board has always been about football ratings, right? And that's Clemson, Florida State, and Miami, right? It's just those 3.
Yeah.
Right. So those are kind of like the most valuable properties there. So then you have to move on to basketball, right? Like you have to move on to hoops at this point if you're going to round it out with 6. So when you look at the list of ACC, of Big 12, of poachable programs, I think it would be fun. I think we should do this. This is the game, guys. We each get to pick a team, and then there'll be a consensus on the other 2. Which 6 get added to the Big Ten? Which ones make the most sense in this little derby here that we have of, God, what is it, 24 teams left between the 2 conferences, or is it like 32? I think it's 16 teams in both the SEC or ACC and Big 12. So, 32 teams, and only 12 make the cut. The rest off into football Siberia. Mm-hmm. So who we taking, guys? Who goes into the Big Ten? Chris, I'm just looking at the screen here. You were at the top. You get 1 pick for the Big Ten.
Give me Carolina.
Who's, joining Carolina,
North Carolina.
Okay. Elijah, who are you taking?
Well, if he's taking Carolina, I don't want to leave Duke at home, but Duke is not a football ratings driver. I think Duke and North Carolina would be fun on the basketball court, but I don't think Duke is very fun on the football field. So I struggle there. My next pick is probably the U.
Yep, Miami's fair.
Okay, so we got Miami and Carolina. I got to take a ratings driver here, all right? I'm going to take, I guess we did get the U. So that just leaves Clemson and Florida State. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to flip over to the Big 12. And when you look at that list, you know what? Since we just got North Carolina, let's take Kansas. Let's take Kansas geography-wise and basketball-wise.
What about the other Notre Dame? And I don't want hate mail from our Mormon friends, but you've got a national brand in BYU that
it's Gary's pick. It's Gary's pick, Chris. Come on, you're influencing his decision.
I appreciate the Mormons of BYU, and the Marriott Center is a great place to watch a basketball game. But I got to go Clemson. Clemson wants to be good in football. They spend money in football. They have a passionate fan base. They're across the board in the other sports. They're not bad. They're a known brand. They've won a national championship. more recently than Ohio State. So I'll go Clemson.
Does Clemson not just scream future SEC school to you, though?
Yeah, I mean, just because of location. But the thing there would be, man, would South Carolina want Clemson in the same conference?
No. That's Florida State's problem with Florida and Miami, with the SEC. And from an academic prestige standpoint, grab your wine and cheese. I mean, the Big Ten still gives a crap about academic standing. Tiger, Shark, Diver is probably not wrong. Clemson has a lot of hot ladies on campus. From an academic and athletic combo that the Big Ten likes to puff their chest out about, Duke, Carolina, Miami, and those are two of the three are private.
You know who would really like Clemson being in the Big Ten?
Well,
Trev Alberts. He's got his lake house is there in Clemson.
There you go. So, okay, guys. So we have a pretty good edition of 4. We got the U, we got Carolina, we got Kansas, we got Clemson. At that point, you just have to round it out with hoops, right? Like,
do you go Virginia?
Duke.
Yep, there you go. You take Virginia and Duke, and we're done. And that's the new Big Ten. Maybe a VTech for football. But I don't know. So then imagine that basketball conference, right? You got Duke, Carolina, Virginia, Kansas, added to the mix. Game over. Game over. You are the preeminent conference in hoops forever. But isn't that interesting, though, that there's really only 3 brands, Notre Dame aside? I do wonder. So the reason why Notre Dame doesn't want to get into a conference is all about the money that they can keep and the contracts that they can sign as an independent group here. But do the SEC and Big Ten contracts get so big and the disbursements get so large that it actually becomes in Notre Dame's best financial interest? Like, they would get more as a member than they would as an independent, because it's going to be tough for them as an independent, I think, if you have 2 giant power leagues.
Well, what you have
now?
Who are you going to play if these 2 giant power leagues tell you to take off? We're not going to play you.
I think there's not a program in America that would turn down playing Notre Dame.
But from a principle standpoint of either get on board with this or take a walk. I mean, from a leverage standpoint. Now, Notre Dame, the university, generates so much money. It's a drop in the bucket compared to what football pays. Notre Dame's all about autonomy and having their own power, having their own say. We're different. We're special. They want to keep that as long as possible.
Yeah. I don't know. But do you think that's basically what's going to drive it, right? Is hoops.
Well,
you only got 3 properties for football. You only got 3 for football.
Fellas, what kind of money is out there with this new streaming partnership, that Fox and ESPN are getting in bed with? What type of dollars and cents is out there for programs like in Nebraska to keep pulling in? What are they at annually now in the Big Ten? 80 million, 85 million just for being in the league? Do you still get that paycheck if you keep adding teams? I mean, how high can this new media rights deal go?
Well, and then if you're inviting teams, just like we're seeing in the ACC, some teams, they're so desperate to get out and join your league that they forego the money that they would get, and maybe they wait 5 to 10 years before they get a full share. I mean, I think if I'm already established in the Big Ten, hey man, I don't want other teams coming in that are going to take part of the pot, because at some point we're going to run out of money. At some point, this is going to collapse.
But a half share from the Big Ten still is probably way the hell better than what you're getting currently. It's still a raise.
Yes, and I also think the identity of being in the Big Ten, where there's stability and there's power.
Safe, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I love this draft. That was kind of fun.
I think that's what's going to happen. Right?
How about relegation? Who do you kick out?
Let's not talk about that right now, because I think we know who'd be relegated, nice job, Nebraska, but sorry, you got to go play Doan, for a minute. That's exactly where Nebraska would be right now, performance-wise. Oh, jeez.
Sharpie, we're going to ask you to get the crystal ball out before we let you get on in wood chipper land. And is Nebraska got to get to 22? Is it 21? Is it 20? They didn't play bad at Illinois. They got their Wisconsin win, and the final score looked better than the game was against Northwestern. Yet the new bracketology heading into the weekend says first 4 in. Yeah. That's where they backslid to. On 3 says they're the first 4 out. Some say Dayton. Nebraska's a mess, and they're tired, right? 4 games, 12 days. And they just don't have the focus and the want to do those little things aside from what you saw at Illinois.
I think that with 7 to go, they got to include a road win here or there because that'll be held against them, even with
Need two, don't you?
Yeah, even with the Purdue and Wisconsin victories, because you need something to overcome a bad non-conference strength of schedule and a poor road record as a Power 6 team. So they got to hold serve at home. And remember, Penn State looks like they're playing better. Minnesota all of a sudden is kind of interesting. So Nebraska's going to be challenged, but I think they need to win 5 of their next 7, and 2 of those need to be on the road. Now, can you hold serve at home? If you do, then you're sitting pretty good. I mean, I think they're still in a good spot. I keep saying, don't play yourself out of the tournament. Wednesday night did not help, but you only played 2 games in the next 10 days. They're both in a building that you play well and you play entirely different. So it's a must-win today against Michigan, and then when you turn around in a week and play Penn State. But I think right now they're probably hovering around an 11 seed, and you don't want to go any lower than an 11 because I don't think the Big Ten is strong enough to bump you and keep you securely in the tournament.
Well, Gary, with Nebraska playing 2 games next 10 days, off most of next week, I guess Saturday to Saturday, what are we going to talk about next week?
I will tell you that, okay, so let me go in both ways here. If Nebraska gets beat today against Michigan, you know what we'll talk about? Even though there is progress with Nebraska basketball, what do we do with Fred? That would be a storyline. Whether it be right or wrong, if you play yourself out of the tournament when you were moving well, then that becomes a discussion point. But then we'll also talk about, we'll have to talk about football. Oh, we'll talk about baseball. Baseball begins next week.
That's right. And
then fingers crossed that Nebraska athletics is not truly cursed, that Jordy Ball's ankle miraculously recovers.
Yeah, that is brutal.
I think we're all cursed. It's going to take not just blowing up the Rock, the Bill Callahan Rock. It's probably going to have to be sacrificing a member of the Callahan family that's not coaching.
Oh, jeez.
It's a live chicken. We need a live chicken and Jobu's rum.
See, when Gary said The Rock, I thought he was referring to Dwayne Johnson, and I was like, what's that going to do? But I follow you now.
This is taking a very murderous turn this morning. You got wood chipper Gary calling for the sacrifice of one of Callahan's family members. This is fantastic.
Hey, he's not here anymore, and I'm all for the success of Nebraska athletics.
It'd be a shame if something happened to Bill Callahan and his family.
Are you any of you guys going to Pinnacle Bank Arena tomorrow?
Today, even. 5:30.
Tomorrow you got Caitlin Clark tomorrow.
Tomorrow's game is the highest ticket price on the secondary market ever for an event at Pinnacle Bank Arena.
Case in point of why I'm not going. No, not going to go to watch that. And Caitlin Clark has a chance to set the scoring record against Nebraska. But she has to really light it up.
39 points is her career high at Pinnacle Bank Arena.
But
I am not going.
But there are a lot of people that don't want her to break the record at Pinnacle Bank Arena, and they're not just Nebraska fans. I think Iowa fans would be good with her getting 35. Iowa wins. They come home Tuesday. They play Michigan. She can do it at home. Heck, her coach even wants it. I wouldn't be surprised if it's late in the game, if Iowa has the game secured and she's like 5 to 6 points away, they pull her out of the game. But what a great opportunity for Amy Williams' team, okay? That whole Fox broadcast, and it's Fox National at noon tomorrow, is going to be all about 22, and it should. She should get her flowers because what she's done for that sport and the kind of player that she is and what she's done for that program. But, man, look at Nebraska women's basketball could be a really pain in the butt tomorrow to Iowa.
I hope they stifle her. I hope Amy and company get a much-needed resume-bumping win at home. And I hope old Coatney goes off in a great way with the call. And listen, dude, Caitlin Clark is an incredible talent. Wow, what a talent. But she is hard to take for a lot of people in the basketball world. And what I mean by that, you're talking coaches, you're talking teammates, you're talking players, folks that have grown up around her on the AAU circuit as a teammate and as a personality. I mean, she was F-bombing the officials the other night because she got a charge called against her.
But every day that ends in Y, I'd take her on my team.
Oh,
yeah,
sure. She's one. Absolutely. She's one of those players that you can't stand unless she's on your team or he's on your team. Totally get it.
No, but I'd take her on my basketball team, would not cast her in my commercial. Those State Farm ads, brutal.
Yeah. Well, here's one quick thing about those. So it looks awkward because they never filmed everybody together. They all did their separate parts. She filmed her part in Iowa City. So the first time she met Jenny Taff was when Jenny Taff came to Iowa City to cover an Iowa women's game. So they were not together when they filmed that. But you're right. They are a little cringeworthy. Also, when you walk into your local Hy-Vee and she's telling you to buy Chinese food, and I'm like, we're in Omaha, Nebraska. I know that we've got Iowa fans, but really? I mean, she's everywhere. It's weird. I will be there tomorrow because, guys, if you have not seen it, it is a show with her. And she's really good with the young fans and signing autographs. I have a really good friend that him and his wife graduated from Nebraska, and they are diehard Husker fans. And their kids are as well, but their two daughters have number 22 Iowa jerseys that they're going to wear to the game tomorrow.
Yeah, she's Steph, man. She's Steph Curry, straight up. Steph Curry of the college basketball world for women. Hey, real quick, Gary. Go ahead. Yeah.
And you never know. You know, there is a great basketball player in Omaha right now in Britt Prince. I don't want to even start with comparisons, but the only comparison I'll make is when you have a player that is so good like Caitlin Clark, she elevates your program. I wonder if Nebraska over the next few years will get the bump from Britt Prince, because Britt Prince is one of the better players that has come through the state of Nebraska and will be in Lincoln next year.
Hey, speaking of that, by the way, one of the better players that have come through Nebraska, switching over to why you're in Fargo. You got North Dakota State today, right? UNO basketball against North Dakota State, and Frankie Fiddler is lighting it up, man.
Frankie's
he
awesome.
lit up North Dakota State for 34 last time they played, and averaging 19 a game. He's 6'7", kid out of Bellevue West, real versatile player. For folks that haven't seen him, Gary, he seems like one of those guys, and I know I'm not asking you to comment on this. He's one of those guys that I think would be hot on the transfer market. Like, he's a guy that seems like he could take a bump if he wanted to do that. But what are people missing if they haven't watched Fiddler play for the Mavs?
He's a bucket getter. There's nothing like when you watch him that jumps off the page, you go, man, physically, he just stands out. He's just a bucket getter. He gets to the free throw line a ton. Which he's a fun guy. He probably, if you slipped him into the Big Ten right now, I don't think he would be noticeable, like as a starter. But he's a bucket getter, man. He goes and gets points. The thing, and I get asked this, and it's fair because Frankie has another year left, is he's built different than a lot of kids that have been around that are looking for that next big thing. Yep. And he truly loves Omaha. Another thing to keep in mind, and he was courted last year, not by a local school. He was courted by a ACC school, and he said no. He would like to set the all-time school record for scoring at Omaha. He's now 12th. If you follow along what he's done, he wouldn't do it until about the 4th or 5th game next year, and that's a record that in Omaha sports lore, Dean the Dream Thompson, nobody thought you'd come close to at 1,800. Yep. Frankie begins today with a little over 1,300 points. Wow.
Bonus part of the pod today, we'll have our Tom Rathman interview as the Niners and Chiefs touch gloves tomorrow. Parting shot from wood chipper Gary, the Iron Horse. Your Chiefs get back-to-back done. Are you feeling good for tomorrow?
I am. I am. It's kind of taken me all week to get to the point where I feel secure. But I think Nebraska, Kansas City defensively is built different. And I just think San Francisco hasn't played a complete game yet. And if Kansas City gets a lead, Mahomes doesn't put himself in a precarious position in the postseason. And Kansas City's been there, done that. I think they win a close game. I think it'll be a great Super Bowl tomorrow. But I think Kansas City wins back-to-back Super Bowls, and everybody can hate on the Chiefs more.
Whew. Yeah. It's all right, man. You've taken the arrows.
It's just really,
you know what? Hey, Nick Lowry. Nick the Kick was your guy.
Joe Delaney was the guy that got me into being a Chiefs fan. I went to training camp at William Jewell College in Liberty, Missouri, and Joe Delaney, because he was this diminutive running back, rest in peace, I fell in love with him. I got a 37 jersey. I got a picture with Joe Delaney when I was like 7, 8 years old. That's how I became a Chiefs fan. But it's weird to me. If we rewound the tape and went back to the 90s and everybody hated Nebraska, it's just weird that we hate teams that win.
I know.
Because they win too much.
Yeah. Well, and the Chiefs, I mean, they're pulling off like Patriot stuff at this point, right? Like 6 straight times in the title game, and multiple Super Bowl appearances, and it's so hard to.
It's going to be tougher to get to the Super Bowl out of the AFC.
You know what?
Because of the amount of young quarterbacks.
If the Chiefs are the Patriots, the Denver Broncos are the New York Jets to the New England Patriots.
That's pretty much it.
Elijah, thank you for Bronco hate. Appreciate that.
And Gary will be sending you a horse head Monday morning.
Hey, we'll see Randy Gregory though, right? Like
eat beef chimes in. I don't hate them for winning. I hate them for Taylor Swift.
Tay.
Hating.
Sharpie, enjoy. Stay bundled up, and appreciate you jumping on with us this morning, man.
Enjoy basketball today. PBA will be rocking at 5:30. Place is sold out. Juwan Howard's goodbye tour of the Big Ten continues. But man, Nebraska needs to win. I don't care how it looks. They need to win a basketball game today.
For sure.
4 quad 1 wins so far this year. It's got to be worth something.
Well, at some point they got to start helping themselves.
Yeah.
And today is when it starts.
Quad 3 losses. Yeah. Sharpie, be good. Take care. We'll check in next Saturday, brother. All right. Yep. Kraynak, keep that AI generated double happy this weekend. All right.
You bet as well. You as well, sir.
All right. Elijah, we'll talk to you later for
by the way,
basketball.
I got to get that shirt.
It's in my room.
The NASCAR shirt. Are you going to the Big Ten or to the Michigan Nebraska game today?
No, Schmidt and I we're just gonna say we're calling a high school basketball game, so a little free self
double header, Southwest,
5:30 and 7:30.
Yeah,
where at?
At Lincoln Southwest and North Star
Southwest.
Yeah,
bring that jersey. I might be able to pop by real quick and grab it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Is that cool?
Yeah, right. For sure.
Well, wait.
Then we got to wear it on the next one.
What time are you coming down to Lincoln?
I mean, the tip-off's 5:30, so probably leave here at about 3. I'm guessing. Get there.
We go on at 5:30.
Yeah.
Would you guys be there at 4?
Could be.
Well,
we'll text. I like how we're doing this live.
I'm kind of by the interstate. Not to dox myself and just let everyone know where I live. I'm kind of by the interstate. You might be able to swing by my place on the way down to PBA.
You want to put your address here on the screen, and then what's your soch?
Just put it on the crawl. Put it on the crawl.
I'll hit you up. Because and for folks that don't even know what we're talking about, is we got a what is it? It's a pit shirt. What do you call it?
It's a crew shirt.
It's a crew shirt for NASCAR for the guy who won the Daytona, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was in 2023. I don't follow NASCAR that much, so forgive me here, but
it was Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and it's our good friend
Stenhouse
Eric
Jr.
in the chat. Eric in the chat sent this our way.
Yeah, Eric, who's a loyal listener to the show and shows up all the time, and brought that up and actually sent his crew shirt, and so we're gonna sport that, man, because it's great because it has like logos on it and stuff. And that's what we want to do
and
here.
It would be fitting. It would be fitting next week being Daytona weekend to pull that shirt out for the first time next weekend.
Yeah. This is happening. All right, I'm gonna hit you up. Gonna grab that shirt. Gonna wear it. Hopefully it fits. I don't want to be fat boy in a little shirt. You know,
it's an XL. Coat. You'll be good.
Well, depends on the cut, man. Depends on the cut. But yeah, good to know.
Love it. Fat guy in a little coat. That's
right.
All good.
That's a reference.
Appreciate you all. Thank you so much to all the folks in the stream for checking in with us this morning. Always appreciate you for listening and following along with us. Hail Varsity YouTube, that's where you find the pod. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play with the podcast, the Hail Varsity, Monday through Saturday. Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Mark Kraynak, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt.
And it sucks. I know there's somebody who just sat through that entire conversation because they're like, man, gotta get to that interview after the show. We're just hanging on patiently. And now they're just listening to Mark and I talk about crew shirts and show up to my house.
Make your plans. Meet in Havelock for a cocktail. It's okay.
Yeah. That's a great idea. Thank you, Chris. Yes, you should too. And then show up to a high school drunk calling a basketball game. I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
Wrong sport.
These kids, they don't play like a team or worried about dribbling and shooting threes.
Fundamentals. Where did it go?
I'm not sure if you were
Can
intentionally.
I get a chest pass?
Yeah, that's Harry Carey. Yeah, that's absolutely Harry Carey, huh?
Yeah, that's what I was doing.
Not a single good chest pass this whole game. Just ridiculous. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna say goodbye and good night,
All right.
and have a better tomorrow. See ya.